In the quiet chill of a fading night, as the first hints of dawn brushed the horizon, 5 orphans stood silently by a worn wooden fence. Their empty bowls, clutched tightly in small hands, told a story more powerful than words, a story of hunger, hardship, and hope clinging to the edge of despair. In a land where every sunrise promised another struggle, these children waited, not for charity, but for a miracle that could change the course of their fragile lives. Their faces, etched with sorrow and resilience, mirrored the harsh reality of the Old West, a place where kindness was scarce and survival was a daily battle. Behind that fence stood a man whose life was shaped by the unforgiving land and the weight of his own scars. Known to many as a stoic rancher, his heart was as guarded as the vast acres he tended. Yet, beneath his hardened exterior, a silent conflict brewed, a conflict between self-preservation and the faint, stubborn ember of compassion that refused to be snuffed out. That night, as the orphan's quiet presence lingered at the edge of his world, something unseen began to stir, setting in motion a chain of events that would forever alter their destinies. The barn, weathered by years of storms and neglect, held secrets only the land itself could tell. It was a place of solitude and silence, much like the rancher who called this land home. But as dawn crept closer, the emptiness of that barn would be filled, not just with grain and hay, but with the promise of hope and renewal. The transformation that awaited was as unexpected as the rising sun, a testament to the idea that even the coldest hearts can be softened by the weight of need and the power of community. This story is more than a simple act of generosity. It is a vivid portrait of humanity in its rawest form. It explores the intersections of loneliness and belonging, desperation and kindness, survival and sacrifice. It asks us to look deeper, to see the invisible threads that connect us all, even in the wild and untamed reaches of the West. What began with 5 small, empty bowls at a fence would soon become a symbol of change, a reminder that hope often arrives in the most unlikely places. Stay with us as we uncover this moving tale of compassion and courage, where the dawn does more than break the night. It lights the way for 5 orphans and the man who chose to answer their silent plea. This is a story that will warm your heart and remind you that sometimes the greatest riches come not from wealth or land, but from the courage to give when it matters most. The cold night air wrapped itself around the 5 children standing silently by the weathered fence, their small frames huddled together against the biting chill. Each held an empty bowl, a symbol of the hunger that gnawed at their bellies and the desperation that weighed on their young shoulders. They were orphans, cast-offs in a world that moved too fast to notice the smallest cries for help. Their eyes, wide with a mix of hope and fear, scanned the darkness beyond the fence, searching for a sign that someone would see them, that someone would answer their silent plea. The Old West was a land of rough edges and harsher hearts, where survival often meant turning away. Yet on this night, something was about to break the cycle. Just beyond the fence stood a man whose name was whispered in the nearby town with a mixture of respect and fear. A rancher hardened by years of toil and loss, he was a figure wrapped in solitude, his life etched into the dust and sweat of his land. The world knew him as unyielding, a man who trusted little and cared less, until the quiet presence of 5 starving children began to stir something long dormant within him. Beneath his gruff exterior, memories of his own lost youth flickered like a fading ember, reminding him of the fragility of life and the power of mercy. The barn beside his home was old and neglected, its walls creaking under the weight of time and storms. It was a place where loneliness often took refuge, much like its owner. But as the first light of dawn began to seep into the sky, the emptiness of that barn was about to be challenged in a way no one could have expected. What would fill the barn that morning was not just fodder for livestock, but a testament to a heart rekindled and a community reborn. The rancher's choice in those quiet hours would echo far beyond the dusty plains, changing lives in ways he could scarcely imagine. This story delves deep into the raw and unfiltered emotions that define the human spirit. The intersection of hardship and hope, isolation and belonging, scarcity and generosity. It invites us to look beyond the surface, to see the invisible threads of connection that tie strangers together in moments of profound need. In a world ruled by harsh realities and survival instincts, the decision to fill an empty barn for 5 hungry orphans becomes a beacon of light, a story of redemption and courage. Join us as we explore this compelling tale of compassion and transformation, a journey where 5 small bowls held the weight of a community's conscience, and a single act of kindness sparked a dawn that would forever change the course of many lives. This is a story of the Old West at its most human and its most hopeful. As the chill of night gave way to the pale hues of dawn, the orphans remained at the fence, their empty bowls still in hand, but their spirits flickering with the faintest hint of hope. They had faced too many mornings hungry and cold to fully trust the quiet of the land or the hardness of its people. Yet, here they waited, bound by a silent prayer that someone, anyone, might answer their desperate call. Their bodies were weak, but their resolve was unbroken, forged by countless days and nights spent fighting the odds stacked cruelly against them. Inside the rancher's home, the man awoke to a restless feeling stirring in his chest, a sensation he had not known in years. Memories of his own childhood, of hunger and abandonment, surfaced unbidden, crashing against the walls he had built around his heart. The sight of the 5 orphans at his fence, their small figures outlined by the fading night, pierced through his stoicism. In that moment, he was no longer the distant rancher, but a man confronted with a choice that would test the very core of his being: to turn away or to open his door and his heart. Driven by a force both unfamiliar and undeniable, the rancher moved toward the barn, a place he had long neglected. His footsteps echoed against the worn boards as he threw open the doors, revealing the meager stores of grain and hay he had kept for lean times. Tonight, those stores would be more than provisions. They would be lifelines. As he began to fill his own hands with the precious feed, a sense of purpose ignited within him, fueled by the silent promise he felt toward the children waiting beyond the fence. Outside, the orphans' anticipation grew as the first sounds of movement stirred in the rancher's yard. Their eyes widened as the barn doors creaked open and the glow of lanterns spilled into the morning air. The scent of fresh hay and the promise of food reached them, stirring a joy so profound it brought tears to their weary faces. For these children, long denied the comforts of family and home, this moment was nothing short of a miracle, a chance to believe that kindness still had a place in a world often ruled by cruelty. The barn, once a symbol of solitude and survival, transformed that morning into a sanctuary, a place where emptiness was replaced with plenty and despair was softened by generosity. It was a testament to the power of one man's decision to act, to see the humanity in those 5 empty bowls, and to respond not with indifference, but with compassion. This moment marked the beginning of a journey that would heal wounds far deeper than hunger, binding the rancher and the orphans in a story of hope and renewal. The soft light of dawn painted the sky as the orphans cautiously approached the barn, their empty bowls now filled with grain and nourishment that promised more than just a meal. It promised a reprieve from the harshness of their daily lives. Each child's face, once marked by hunger and despair, now bore the fragile glow of hope, a silent acknowledgement that kindness had not forgotten them. The rancher watched from the shadows, his rugged exterior softened by the sight before him. In their eyes, he saw reflections of his own lost childhood, the memories he had long buried beneath years of solitude and toil. Inside the barn, the air was thick with the scent of fresh hay and the quiet murmur of gratitude as the children ate. The moment was more than just sustenance. It was a turning point, a beginning of trust between a hardened man and 5 fragile souls. The rancher, who had long lived in the silence of his land, felt a stirring in his heart, a warmth that challenged the cold walls he had built around himself. This was not charity. It was a connection forged in shared survival, a bond that transcended words and age. The surrounding community began to take notice. Stories spread of the rancher's unexpected generosity, how he had transformed his barn from a lonely refuge for livestock to a haven for those who had nothing. Whispers of hope circulated in the dusty streets, igniting conversations about compassion in a land where such acts were rare and precious. For some, it was a revelation. For others, a quiet reminder that even the toughest hearts could change. The barn became a symbol, not just of food and shelter, but of humanity reclaiming its place amid the rugged wilderness. As the days passed, the orphans returned, not out of necessity alone, but from a growing sense of belonging. The rancher, once indifferent to the world beyond his fence, found himself drawn into their lives, learning to listen, to care, and to protect. His hands, rough and calloused, became instruments of nurture rather than mere labor. Together, they built a fragile family, bound not by blood but by shared hardship and newfound hope. This chapter in their story reveals the quiet power of empathy and the courage it takes to break free from isolation. It reminds us that the simplest acts, filling empty bowls, opening a barn door, can spark profound transformations, healing wounds left by loneliness and despair. The bond between the rancher and the orphans deepened as they navigated the challenges of frontier life together. The children, once timid and fearful, grew stronger under the rancher's watchful eye, learning the rhythms of the land and the lessons of resilience it demanded. They tended the animals, gathered wood, and shared stories by the fire, each task a step away from survival toward a life infused with purpose and belonging. For the rancher, these moments offered a glimpse of redemption, a chance to rewrite his own story alongside theirs. But the Old West was never a place of certainty. Harsh seasons tested their endurance, scorching summers that withered crops and brutal winters that froze the earth. Danger lurked beyond the horizon, from wild animals to outlaws, reminding them that peace was fragile and hard-won. Yet, their growing family faced each trial united, their shared struggles forging bonds stronger than any adversity. The rancher, once a solitary figure hardened by loss, found strength not just in survival, but in the hope kindled by the children's laughter and courage. The community, too, began to change. Neighbors who had once kept their distance now offered aid and companionship, inspired by the rancher's transformation and the orphan's resilience. The barn, once a symbol of solitude, had become a beacon of generosity and life. Together, they formed a network of support, challenging the isolation that had long defined their world. The frontier's harshness was softened by the collective strength of those willing to open their hearts. In quiet moments, the rancher shared stories of his own past, tales of hardship, mistakes, and lessons learned too late. The children listened, absorbing not just his words but the deeper truths they carried about forgiveness, courage, and the power of second chances. These stories became a foundation upon which they built their future, a future where love and hope were as vital as the air they breathed. This part of their journey is a testament to the enduring power of community and the healing that comes from opening oneself to others. It reminds us that even in the wildest places, where survival often means turning away, the choice to embrace kindness can transform lives and redefine what it means to belong. The rhythm of their days settled into a fragile harmony, the orphans growing stronger and more confident beneath the watchful eyes of the rancher, who had once known only solitude. Each morning, the barn echoed with the sounds of life, soft footsteps, laughter, and the occasional cry that no longer spoke of despair but of belonging. The rancher's once hardened heart softened further, his rough hands learning the delicate art of care, and his guarded spirit opening to the warmth of family. In the vast loneliness of the frontier, they had found a small piece of home, a place where trust replaced fear and hope outshone the shadows of the past. But the land was as unforgiving as ever. Droughts threatened their crops, and winter's cold crept ever closer, reminding them that survival was a daily battle. Yet, these challenges were met with a fierce determination that had grown from shared hardship and love. The rancher taught the children how to endure, to read the sky, track game, and prepare for the harsh seasons ahead. In their eyes, he saw reflections of resilience and the promise of futures that no longer belonged to hunger and fear, but to strength and possibility. The community around them shifted as well, the story of the barn filled with grain for 5 hungry children, spreading far and wide. Neighbors began to see the rancher not just as a solitary figure, but as a leader, a man who chose compassion over indifference, who embraced the burden of care when many would have turned away. Their collective hearts were moved, and slowly, a spirit of generosity and connection blossomed throughout the settlement. In a place often defined by isolation, this growing sense of community offered a powerful counterpoint, a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness can ignite a movement. In quiet evenings, gathered around the flickering light of the hearth, the rancher shared his wisdom, not just of survival, but of life's deeper lessons. Stories of mistakes and redemption, loss and forgiveness, wove through their conversations, planting seeds of understanding that would guide the children as they grew. Through these moments, the barn had become more than a shelter. It was a sanctuary where past pains were confronted and new dreams were born. This chapter of their journey illuminates the transformative power of love and leadership, showing that even in the harshest landscapes, hearts united by kindness can build something enduring. It reminds us all that family is not only born of blood but forged in the courage to care. As seasons turned and the land thawed beneath the promise of spring, the orphans blossomed into youths full of hope and determination. The rancher, once a man marked by isolation, found his legacy intertwined with theirs, a legacy not of wealth or conquest, but of compassion and resilience. Together, they cultivated the soil, repaired fences, and nurtured not just crops, but a community that had grown from the simple act of filling empty bowls. Their shared toil transformed the land into a place of abundance, a stark contrast to the scarcity that once ruled their lives. Yet, the frontier's challenges were never far behind. Wildfires swept through nearby forests, threatening homes and livelihoods, while outlaws lurked on the edges of the settlement, testing the fragile peace. But the unity forged within the barn's walls proved stronger than any external threat. The rancher and the young people stood as guardians of hope, their collective courage a bulwark against the chaos. Their story was no longer just about survival. It was about thriving in a world that demanded resilience and heart. Neighbors who had once kept their distance now joined in, bringing supplies, sharing stories, and offering protection. The settlement transformed into a community bound by mutual respect and shared dreams, a place where the echoes of empty bowls were replaced by the laughter of children and the promise of tomorrow. The barn, once silent and empty, had become a symbol of renewal and the enduring power of generosity. In moments of reflection, the rancher spoke of his own transformation, acknowledging that the simple act of opening his barn doors had changed him as much as it had changed the lives of the children. The hardships they endured together had healed old wounds and created new beginnings. Their story was a testament to the truth that even the coldest hearts can be warmed by the fire of kindness, and that hope can flourish where it is nurtured. This stage of their journey reminds us that true wealth is found in community and compassion, and that the most profound legacies are those built on love and shared strength. It challenges us to consider how our own small acts might ripple outward, shaping futures in ways we cannot yet imagine. The slow turn of time shaped the young orphans into resilient souls, their childhood hardships giving way to newfound strength and purpose under the rancher's care. The man who had once stood aloof behind a weathered fence found himself deeply entwined in their lives, no longer a solitary figure, but the heart of a makeshift family forged from the rough soil of the West. His lessons extended beyond survival. They taught the children about honor, courage, and the unspoken bonds that held them together in a world too often marked by loss. With every day that passed, the barn that had once stood empty grew into a sanctuary filled with laughter, learning, and hope. The community that had watched with cautious eyes slowly embraced this new chapter, their hearts opening to the possibility that even in the harshest environments, kindness could thrive. Neighbors brought not just goods and aid, but companionship and understanding, weaving the loner and the orphans into the broader fabric of frontier life. Their story spread like wildfire, an emblem of change in a land that prized toughness above tenderness. It was a quiet revolution that reshaped how people saw one another, reminding all that compassion was a strength, not a weakness. Despite this progress, the frontier remained unpredictable and often brutal. Droughts threatened the harvest, wild animals prowled the outskirts, and the constant threat of bandits forced vigilance at every turn. Yet, the family they had built stood unbroken, a fortress of mutual support and unwavering love. The rancher's watchful eyes and the orphans' growing confidence turned each challenge into a testament to their resilience. Together, they faced the wilderness not as isolated survivors, but as a united force, proving that true strength lies in community and care. In the quiet evenings, as stars blanketed the sky, the rancher shared stories of his own past, of battles fought and mistakes made, but also of redemption found through unexpected grace. These moments of vulnerability deepened the bond between them, teaching the orphans the profound lesson that even broken lives could be mended with love and courage. Their shared history became a source of strength, inspiring them to dream of futures where they were more than victims of circumstance. This part of their journey shows us that healing is possible, even in the harshest landscapes, when hearts are open and hands are joined. It teaches that family is not always defined by blood, but by the choice to love and protect each other, no matter the odds. With the coming of autumn, the farm blossomed into a place of plenty, its fields heavy with grain and the barn overflowing with harvest. The transformation was remarkable, a stark contrast to the empty bowls and hunger that had once stood at the fence. The orphans, now young adults, had become skilled hands and wise hearts, carrying forward the legacy of resilience taught by the rancher. Their laughter echoed through the valleys, a sound that replaced the silence of despair with the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Yet, the lessons of the frontier were never forgotten. Life remained a delicate balance between hope and hardship. Wildfires sparked fear, storms threatened their crops, and the lingering dangers of the West tested their resolve. But the strength of their bond turned these trials into triumphs. They were no longer isolated souls fighting alone, but a family fortified by love, shared history, and unbreakable trust. Each challenge faced together became a chapter in their enduring story. The community, inspired by the family's perseverance and kindness, grew stronger. New settlers arrived, drawn by tales of the ranch, where 5 orphans found home and a man found redemption. Together, they forged a new frontier, not just of land and livestock, but of compassion and cooperation. The barn, once a symbol of scarcity, had become a beacon of hope, its walls holding stories of survival and love passed down through generations. In reflective moments, the rancher and the young adults spoke of the power of choice, the decision to open one's heart, to offer help when it was easiest to turn away. Their story was a testament to the idea that even the smallest acts can ripple through time, changing lives and communities forever. They had learned that true wealth was not measured in gold or land, but in the strength of bonds formed in the face of adversity. This chapter reminds us that the greatest legacies are those born from kindness and resilience, and that even in the wildest places, hope can grow where it is nurtured. It challenges us to look beyond our own fences and see the hungry souls waiting for a chance to belong. As the years unfolded, the orphans, once fragile and timid, blossomed into individuals shaped by strength, resilience, and the deep love they found within the rancher's care. Their childhood marked by hardship had transformed into a future bright with promise, rooted in the lessons of courage and compassion taught beneath the vast western skies. The man who had once been a distant figure, bound by loneliness and grief, had become a father, mentor, and steadfast protector, a beacon of stability in a world often defined by chaos and loss. Their shared journey was no longer one of mere survival, but of thriving, building a life that honored their past while embracing hope. News of their transformation spread beyond the rolling plains and dusty trails, inspiring others who struggled with despair and isolation. Travelers carried tales of the barn once filled with empty bowls now overflowing with abundance, of the man who answered a silent plea and rewrote the destinies of 5 children. These stories became legends, whispered by campfires and shared in saloons, reminding the frontier that even the harshest hearts could be softened by kindness, and that hope could flourish in the most unlikely places. The family's resilience sparked a quiet revolution, challenging the hard edges of the West with the warmth of human connection. Despite the growth and prosperity, The unforgiving nature of the frontier never fully relented. Storms tore through the valley, wild animals prowled nearby, and outlaws threatened the fragile peace. Yet, the family faced each trial not with fear, but with unwavering solidarity. The rancher's wisdom and the young adult's newfound strength created a bulwark against adversity, proving that unity forged in love and trust could withstand the fiercest tempests. Together, they carved out a sanctuary where safety and hope were more than fleeting dreams. In moments of quiet reflection beneath the endless star-strewn sky, the rancher and the young ones shared stories, tales of loss, forgiveness, and the power of second chances. These narratives became a source of strength, weaving a tapestry of resilience that connected past to present and illuminated the path forward. Their lives were living proof that even when broken, hearts could heal, and that love was the most powerful force in the vastness of the Old West. This part of their story reminds us all that our greatest legacies are born from the courage to care, the strength to forgive, and the willingness to open our hearts when the world seems darkest. In the twilight of their years, the rancher and the orphans he raised stood together, gazing out over the land that had witnessed their struggles and triumphs. What had once been a place of empty bowls and silent pleas had grown into a thriving homestead, rich not just in crops and livestock, but in love, community, and shared history. Their journey had transformed them from isolated souls into a family bound by sacrifice, hope, and unbreakable bonds. The barn, once a symbol of scarcity, was now a monument to generosity and renewal. Their story, passed down through generations, became a beacon for all who faced hardship and loneliness, a reminder that no one is ever truly alone when kindness exists. The rancher's decision to open his barn doors that fateful night rippled through time, inspiring countless others to embrace compassion and courage. In a world that often rewards toughness, their legacy showed that true strength lies in vulnerability and the willingness to give without expecting anything in return. The orphans, now adults shaped by love and hardship, carried forward this legacy into new lives and families, spreading the seeds of hope planted in the soil of that humble barn. Their journeys were varied, but united by the common thread of resilience, compassion, and the power of second chances. Together, they stood as living proof that the greatest treasures in life are not gold or land, but the connections we forge and the lives we touch. As the sun set behind the horizon, casting long shadows over the vast plains, the family knew their story was far from over. It was a continuing testament to the power of kindness to change destinies and to the unyielding spirit of the human heart. Their legacy was etched into the very fabric of the Old West, a timeless reminder that even in the wildest, most unforgiving places, hope can thrive and love can conquer all. This final chapter invites us all to carry forward their example, to open our own doors, fill empty bowls, and be the change in a world that so desperately needs it. As we close the story of the 5 orphans who stood with empty bowls at a fence, only to find a barn full of dawn, we are reminded of the incredible power of compassion to change lives. This tale from the Old West teaches us that even the smallest acts of kindness can ripple across time, healing wounds and building communities where there was once only isolation. It is a vivid reminder that hope can be kindled in the darkest moments, and that generosity has the power to rewrite destinies. Their journey challenges us to look beyond hardship and scarcity, urging us to recognize the profound strength found in caring for one another. In a world often focused on survival of the fittest, this story calls us to embrace the courage it takes to open our hearts and doors to those in need. It reminds us that true wealth is not measured by gold or land, but by the love and kindness we share with others. As you reflect on this story, consider the empty bowls in your own life, the unmet needs, the opportunities for compassion, the moments where your actions could spark change. Like the rancher, we all face choices that define who we are and what legacy we leave behind. This story is an invitation to be brave, to be generous, and to be the light in someone else's darkness. If this story touched your heart, we invite you to join our community by subscribing to the channel. Like this video if it inspired you, and share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your voice helps keep these stories alive and creates a space where hope and courage can grow, inspiring others to act with kindness. Together, let us honor the legacy of those who choose compassion over indifference and generosity over neglect. Thank you for being part of this journey. May their story inspire you to fill the empty bowls you encounter every day with love, hope, and humanity.